H. Robert Silverstein, MD, for the Preventive Medicine Center and West Hartford Cable Access TV. As you know, this is the program Putting It All Together, where we try to join medical and community information on behalf of West Hartford Cable Access TV and give you what I hope is the most up-to-date information that you can get concerning many topics. A Renaissance man, yes, that's humorous. By the way, I wanted to have as a backdrop a painting. No, actually, it's a collage by a painter, artist by the name of Mel Bochner, B-O-C-H-N-E-R. And the title of the painting is Blah, Blah, Blah. It's really pretty funny. So why don't you look it up and see it for yourself? B-O-C-H-N-E-R, Bochner, Mel Bochner. I offered to buy it from him, but he didn't even respond because his price was considerably above my offer. But I told him I'd put it on as a background for my TV show. In any case, look up Mel Bochner, B-O-C-H-N-E-R, apostrophe S, Bochner's Blah, Blah, Blah collage. It's really funny. And that's why I wanted to have it as a background. All right, to get to the issues today, the main issues are still the coronavirus. Now, the coronavirus is being handled better here in the state of Connecticut. It could be handled even better. I have some information here about studies that were done in California, large healthcare systems, University of California in Los Angeles, UCLA, and University of California, San Diego, another large healthcare, very well-respected systems. And what they found out was following the second dose of the corona vaccine, and now that implies Moderna and Pfizer, it does not describe J&J, but by day 15 or later, there were 0.2% of people who became infected. That's 2 in 1,000. Now, what does that tell me and what should it tell you? I'm going to give you my opinion. My opinion is that the pandemic is over for anybody who has had immunization, 2 immunizations plus 2 weeks. There are minor caveats. It's not as true for people who are over the age of 65, and it's not as true for people who have immune compromise of any varieties, such as cancer, chemotherapy, or diseases of immunity primarily. Now, I don't know if that applies to people with rheumatoid arthritis or multiple sclerosis or people with HIV. But the bottom line is you should be careful. Now, what does it mean that only 2 people in 1,000 become infected 14 days after their second infection, second immunization? What it means is, as I've said once, the pandemic is over for those people. They can go about their entirely normal lives, as far as I am concerned. Now, this is scientific data. Do with it what you will. I'm telling you what I think. I think that you don't have to mask, and you really don't have to be careful. I would say if you knew somebody was positive for the coronavirus, I would avoid contact with them. But other than that, you should be able to go shopping, go into the mall, go into restaurants, sit next to somebody you don't know at a bar and have a drink. You are essentially immune. Now, here's another point. Of those people who, of those people who did become ill, almost nobody had any serious illness. And what I mean by that is they may have had a cold or flu-like picture, but they weren't sick enough to be admitted to the hospital. When you take larger and larger numbers, yes, there is a small and even smaller incidence of people who did become ill, needed hospitalization, and even died. But that is a part of normal life. I always say, as a for instance, if you never want to have an auto accident, then whatever you do, don't get into a car. Now, of course, that's absurd, and that's not the way we live our life. So I'm saying the same thing here. Go about your normal life, put the pandemic behind you, be normal, and go to school, take classes, go to movies, go to restaurants and bars. And I'm not telling you to do this. I'm saying you may do that reasonably safely. All right, so the title of this was SARS Coronavirus Infection Following Vaccination in Healthcare Workers in California. And it was published in the most prestigious of the medical journals in the United States, the New England Journal of Medicine. All right, now, I hope that settles the issue. By the way, what to do if you do become infected. My website, the Preventive Medicine Center, www.thepmc, has a treatment protocol that your physician or healthcare provider may or may not be familiar with. I've used it in a fair number of patients, not large, 10, maybe 15. And universally, 100%, people are better the next day without requiring hospitalization and so on. I think hospitals should also be doing this. It combines medications like Pepcid, the anti-stomach acid medication over the counter, Pepcid, colchicine, the anti-gout medication. I just read a study that said that was not effective. I don't believe it. I believe the study that says it is effective. Use of cholesterol-lowering medication like Lipitor. The one that was studied first was Livalo, pitavastatin, and that reduced hospitalization, need for ventilators. Let's see, Pepcid, statin, colchicine, the antibiotic Z-Pak, azithromycin, and let's see, ivermectin, the lice medication has proven effective, and that's a little combination. The significant dose of prednisone or Decadron, whichever you care to use, but not a single dose. It's over several days and tapered down. So if you want to see that, then go to the website, www.thepmc.org. It's sort of like telling you there's a treatment for the flu, because it doesn't get farther than a flu. Is it farther or further? I think it's further, because farther is actual distance and further is degree. So it doesn't get further than a simple bad cold or flu-like picture. Are there exceptions to this? Look, let's be practical. There are exceptions to everything. We are living in an environment of fear. I've been intending to write this editorial letter to the editor, and the first line of it is going to be, if it bleeds, it leads. The news organizations like to have negative information. When you see what comes out of the medical community that's on TV, generally, it's very negative and cautious and creates fear in the public. There is no need for that. We should be very optimistic. This is a very fine opportunity to resume normalcy with a positive attitude. In a certain sense, for heaven's sakes, it's springtime. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't issues, but it does mean that we should have that blooming, blossoming, positive feeling of growth and welcoming of life that spring brings to us. This negativity that you hear, and I can name names, but it's time to stop with the caution, because like I said, the risk is 2 in 1,000. And if you want to know how to treat it, go to the Preventive Medicine Center website and take a look at that. All right, changing gears. A friend of mine who is very, very bright, almost photographic memory, and was an excellent physician, who is an excellent physician and retired now, really liked what I wrote here as a letter to the editor that was published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. And it had to do with people who had written about cholesterol. And my response was that the people who set up the criteria of what to treat made it too confusing. First principles, simplicity. When you take the total cholesterol and you subtract the good, that gives you all of the bad cholesterol. Not just LDL, but IDL and VLDL also. So that's all of the bad cholesterol. I like to call it ATB, but it's got another name, non-HDL cholesterol. Non-HDL cholesterol of 90 is where hardening of the arteries ceases to progress and begins to reverse. If we had everybody at a non-HDL cholesterol of 90 or less, and a blood pressure of 110 to 115 over 60 to 70, and a triglycerides of 100, along with a few other values, hardening of the arteries, open heart surgery, angioplasty, stents, the need for those would essentially disappear if the condition can be stopped where it is and begun to regress. Now you might say, well, should it be lower? 90 is where you start and you can go down from there. And yes, there is an improvement in reduction of hardening of the arteries, but generally that has to do with control of the diabetes test, the A1C, which should be not higher than 6.2 at age 62 and as low as 4.4 at age 44. You might say, what about younger? It's not going to go lower than 4.4 or so. So the range is your age with a decimal point, 4.4 for age 44, 5.5 at age 55, 6.2 at age 62. Those are the ranges where your blood sugar is no longer a risk for the development of hardening of the arteries. The concept is risk regression to zero, no risk at all. Risk regression to zero. And that is what we should be thinking about in our treatments. Although I'm never one to be happy when I hear someone say that the surgeon told them that they'd gotten all of the cancer, because it ain't as simple as going in and cutting it out. But regardless, that is the concept of getting it all. A non-HDL cholesterol and all of the bad cholesterol, non-HDL cholesterol of 90 or less, triglycerides of 100 or less, A1C not above 62 at age 62 and beyond, and down as low as 4.4 if you're age 44 or below. Blood pressure 110/115 over 60 to 70, and so on. Now, what is the 800-pound gorilla? And I imagine that the politically correct people are going to jump on that phrase, but they shouldn't, because it's established and knows what it means. The 800-pound gorilla is percent body fat and diet. I have an article here, a wonderful, wonderful article from the American Journal of Cardiology, just came out this month. And it's written by Monica Agarwal, then Dean Ornish, then somewhere in here, Andrew Freeman. And this article is entitled Closing Gaps in Lifestyle Adherence for Secondary Prevention of Coronary Heart Disease. And what they do is they completely outline all of the points, I'm not bragging, all the points that I've made repeatedly. And of course, they've made repeatedly. I've learned from these people. I've been saying these things since around, forget it, for a very long time. And formally since 1983. This is how to stop hardening the arteries. And it has to do with percent body fat. It has to do with diet. It has to do with exercise, not smoking, limiting alcohol, et cetera, and a positive mental status. thanking God for things being as good as they are, rather than focusing on the problems. Yes, we all have to overcome. We shall overcome. And as I said, this is the springtime joy of transformation, where we can and should have a much more positive attitude as things go forward, since all those people who are double vaccinated plus 14 days are now essentially through with the coronavirus pandemic. Now, but this article lays it out very clearly. American Journal of Cardiology, closing gaps. That's what you want to remember. And if you can remember, Monica is her first name. Monica Agarwal, Aggarwal. So those people are in complete agreement with me. I am in complete agreement with those people. We've been saying the same thing, all of us, for years and years. Dean Ornish may have preceded what I had to say, but certainly we were contemporary and came up with the idea independently. So I want to talk about exercise for a moment. These are my neoprene covered hand weights. And the reason I show you this is, number one, the shape, and number two, note the thickness of the handle. That handle feels good in your hand. The little thin handles of the usual steel weights do not feel as good in your hand. Plus the fact the neoprene covering keeps it from feeling cold that you get when you touch steel directly. So you may say, well, I wear gloves. Okay, fine, wear your gloves. But this is really nice in your hand. And all you have to do for exercise is get yourself some of these 3-pound weights for smaller women, 5-pound weights for normal sized men, and 10 or 15 pounds also. So you walk around the house doing the cross country ski action. I'm not extending my arm all the way back because it doesn't show, but that's the idea. Just walk through your house with these weights in your hand. You don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to go outside uh, in the bad weather. Of course, it's always great to go outside. More and more studies are showing that simply being outdoors has a positive, if not even curative, effect for many, many disorders. So I personally, I'm kind of a house person. I like being inside. But I also like being outside. I open the sunroof on my car as soon as the weather is permitting, and like to drive that way. All right, so what are the major risk factors? Breathing. I know people who smoke. I have patients who smoke. There is a medication, I'm never sure how to pronounce it, cystidine. I think it's cytosine, Cytosine. Site is Cytisine, cytosine. And that spelling is probably not correct, but you get the idea. And then you can always use Chantix, Wellbutrin, the patches, the electronic cigarettes. The key thing is to begin to make a change, take a step. Breathe. So that's breathing. Don't smoke. If you live near an interstate highway, get yourself a good home air filter. I have one, and had one for years and years, with the UV light in it, by Sun Pure, Sunpure. Expensive, yes, but they last a very long time. They're very high quality. It's like my mother always said, get the best and then you won't regret it. Yes, you have to pay more for it, but you don't have down the road problems. I know people who bought new refrigerators and they like them fine, but I know people who have sub-zero refrigerators, and the the maintenance of the health of the food in a sub-zero is different from other refrigerators. Now, what about other high-end brands? I know I'm talking money, but again, it's like, how many refrigerators do you want to buy? You want to buy one, or you want to buy two or three? Okay, so breathe, drink, The human body is designed to drink clean water, like it's designed to breathe clean air. Water, weak herb tea. What about the proverbial cup of coffee? Yes, I'm not going to argue with you for 1 or 2 cups of coffee a day. I will tell you that one of the anything that you must repeatedly do in order to feel normal is that's a sign that it's probably not that great for you. If you are a coffee drinker of 2 cups a day and stop it, most people will go into withdrawal, headaches, uh, profound fatigue, sleepy, and so that tells you about your addiction. So 1 or 2 cups of coffee a day, if you will or must. I like to recommend things like that 4 to 5 days a week. Ideally, 4 days 1 week, 5 days the next, but I'll settle for 5 days. And it doesn't make any difference whether it's the weekend off or Monday and Thursday off or Tuesday and Friday off. Uh, 5 days a week. So breathe, drink, eat. The human body, whether you and I like it or not, is essentially vegetarian. All those people who want to argue about the human body being omnivores, can eat anything, have got it wrong. We don't have fangs and claws. Our jaw comes down to grind like all the other vegan animals. Our closest relatives biologically, monkeys and gorillas, are vegan vegetarian. There are exceptions. They will eat a bug or something like that that is animal protein, but that is uncommon. And so our diet should be uncommonly animal protein. Now, I'm a big believer in flexibility. If you don't have any lung issue or any heart disease issue, if you smoke 3 cigars a year, that would be fine. Your body would tolerate that. Or if you had 4 glasses of wine uh, a week, I think the body would tolerate that without any adverse effect. 4 is the limit, not 6, not 8, 4. 4 per week. Uh, and what about diet? I believe that the human physiology will tolerate animal protein up to twice a week. So that's 19 of 21 meals that should be foods exactly as they grow up out of the ground and in the field. That's the difference between brown rice and brown rice pasta, or the difference between brown rice and white rice. All the vegetables except the potato family, because potatoes cause weight gain or maintain weight gain. Uh, so a few grains. I like quinoa and millet in particular as replacements for brown rice. Everybody thinks they know how to cook rice, but they don't know how to cook millet or quinoa. It's exactly the same. It's just different times. That's all. Quinoa is much shorter. If you soak brown rice overnight, it cooks in 30 minutes of boiling time. If you soak quinoa overnight, it cooks in 7 minutes of boiling time. Otherwise, if you don't soak them overnight, you double those numbers. So brown rice takes 60 minutes of boiling time or thereabouts, unless it's already been parboiled, which is a bad idea, not a good idea. Quinoa takes 15 minutes of boiling time. And if you soak it overnight, it cooks in 7 minutes, 7.5 minutes. Millet is 45 minutes if you don't soak it overnight, and 22 minutes if you do soak it overnight. All the vegetables except the potato family, no red potatoes, no white potatoes. Yes, I know they're delicious, and French fries, and so I'm not here to argue. I am about health care health preservation, diminishing the need for health care, free to choose, just like with the coronavirus vaccination. You are free to choose whether to treat yourself as normal or to still follow the rules of the needs for masking and so on, which I think are incorrect at this point. People always say, let's go back to the coronavirus. Well, you might be around someone who's positive and then you would get colonized and spread it. That is paranoid thinking. You do not need to think that way. You need to think that you are, for all practical purposes, immune. It's like deciding when you get in your car to put on your seatbelt that you are effectively immune. That doesn't mean you have no risk of an accident. It means you are effectively better off doing what I say. So anyhow, those people want to argue against I don't like to use the word control, but there's definitely an element of fear that is being projected in our nation from the top down. And we need to have an element of positive, can do, this is America, the land of greatest opportunity, and go forth with that. So breathe, drink, eat, beans, lentils, chickpeas, black-eyed peas, split peas. You can get all the protein you need right out of the grains, but if you can handle the beans, that's a good idea. Bean soups, bean stews, chili. Uh, what if you sneak in a little bit of meat in the chili? Fine, but it's got to be a little bit. And when you think about whatever a little bit is, think about what would Dr. Silverstein say to me if I were about to put X amount of meat into my chili? The concept is meat as a spice. I always talk about, have you ever had pork fried rice? If you've ever had pork fried rice, you'll notice that the amount of pork in the pork fried rice is tiny. That is exactly the right concept for the use of animal protein as a condiment. Meat as a spice, not as a center of the plate. You should not say we're having chicken tonight, or that we're having steak tonight, or we're having hamburgers tonight. You should take a portion of that, grind it up, and put it in your brown rice or your vegetables or your chili. And when I say a portion, I mean twice a week you could have palm-sized servings. Now, why am I being so dictatorial? I'm not being dictatorial. I'm trying to give you some information that you can learn from, and you will set yourself free so doing. So palm size, my palm for me, your palm for you, not more than twice a week. If you are in perfect shape, where you have abdominal clear lines of definition and demarcation, you could have animal protein 3 times a week, which is almost every other day. So breathe, drink, eat, and what about exercise? Well, the correct idea for exercise is not some muscle development. It's an absence of fat on your abdomen. I don't care how you get to that with a combination of diet and exercise, but when you look down, it's not a question of seeing six-pack abs. It's a question of, can you see where the muscles meet the muscles? And all that requires is low percent body fat, and that is the perfect percent body fat. So don't think about percent body fat. Yes, there is a number that correlates with that. I'm not interested in that number. Get as close to abdominal clear lines of definition and demarcation. And then psychologically, unrealistic expectations. People have unrealistic expectations, and they also simply have expectations. It's not that you shouldn't work hard with the idea of getting your degree or a good grade. But what you should do is not expect it to be handed to you, given to you, that you deserve or whatever. And you may say, well, people should be civil to me. That's true, but some won't be. So what are you going to do when you run into those kinds of circumstances? Always try to win them over. And the best way is with a little bit of humor, like my Mel Bachner's blah, blah, blah background for this TV show. I've got to talk to Jennifer Evans about seeing if she can put that up, because I really do want that as my background on this show. He wanted $26,700, I think. And that was beyond my reach. So, breathe, drink, eat, exercise, and unrealistic expectation. Thank God things are as good as they are. Don't be negative. Don't be critical. Ask questions instead of making statements. Well, what do you think about this? Or should we consider having brown rice and lentils for dinner tonight? Don't say, I want brown rice and lentils for dinner tonight. Ask questions, be gentle. That's how to get along in society. Guess who could take a lesson? Okay, so that's really it. Now, A couple of points I also want to talk about. You see all these ceramic pans, coated pans, non-stick pans. Don't buy those. They make cooking simple, but that stuff peels off, breaks down. Buy enamel coated cast iron. The big name there, the high price there is Le Creuset, but there's also other companies which make almost as good or as good products. Enamel coated cast iron. Many years ago, I lucked out and bought a cast iron wok made by Le Creuset, and I make my soups in that. So I heat the wok, and then I throw in the cut up vegetables that I get at Trader Joe's. We ought to complain about the prices at Whole Foods. They are unnecessarily too high. Whole Foods provides a wonderful service, and they have excellent options of choice that other stores don't have. Secondarily to Trader Joe's, I like Big Y. And of course, as I said, Whole Foods is too expensive, but on the other hand, they provide a service that none of the other stores really can. Let's see here. Statins, cholesterol. This is a copy of what's on the website about how to treat the coronavirus. And my position is, if this were used, there'd be almost no need for people to go to the hospital. And thank goodness the effect of the immunizations is now causing a decline in the incidence of the coronavirus. Now, what do I think of the vaccines? And I get asked that all the time. And I get patients who say, I'm not going to. That's a risk and benefit decision. Once we reach the so-called herd immunity, which we're not that far from, then you would be safe out in public without an immunization. Are there downsides to the immunization? Well, everybody's heard about the clots from the J&J vaccine, and or is it Janssen, or is it whatever? Regardless, I think it's J&J and Janssen. So yes, that is a reality, but the reality is small. What other side effects? Are people developing dizziness, fatigue, headaches, indigestion, diarrhea? Maybe, maybe not. So the long-term effects of these vaccines are unknown. It is a guess. The question is short-term goals versus long-term goals. And we don't know what the long-term results will be. We know that the short-term results are that they make us essentially immune to the coronavirus. I am double vaccinated with the Pfizer vaccine. I wanted the Moderna vaccine. I got the Pfizer vaccine. Since I've gotten it, I've heard more good things about the Pfizer vaccine than the Moderna. But either way, you take what you get. Now, some places I understand you literally get to choose. I would choose any of the 3 vaccines that were available. If I were a premenopausal woman, I would not choose J&J. But other than that, if you were a man, I'd say fine. If you were older, postmenopausal, I'd say fine. All right, now what else did I want to talk about here? Going back to the study about California. This is entitled, this is April 8th. So it's fairly recent, not even a month old. Coronavirus infection following vaccination in healthcare workers in California. And I've reviewed this once, but I want to pull up these numbers. See these numbers right here? Those numbers. And what do those numbers say? Day 15 or later positivity rate, that means able to catch the virus just in the nose. Doesn't say you're sick at all. 0.2%. 0.2% is 2 people in 1,000. 2 people in 1,000. That is essentially none. If you wish to live in fear, you are free to do so. I am here about the human freedom potential. And so I suggest that once again, 14 days plus the vaccine is over for you. The pandemic is over for you. Now, I think you should begin to tell stores wherever you go that that information so that they will begin to reduce the constraints that are upon us, which are that degree of fear that I keep telling you about. Tell the people in the mall, tell the people in the mall store, tell the people in the grocery stores, tell everyone this information, that the risk now, if you're double vaccinated plus 14 days or 15 days, is essentially non-existent. So that's pretty much it. I have, anybody noticed the change in the Xfinity bill? I've got an Xfinity bill I can't believe, and I haven't really charged anything new or changed anything. Um, that's it. Take a break here, see what else I've got over here. There's a new product that I'm going to offer my patients for sleep. It's the company name is Beam, Beam, and I think I'm about to sneeze. Excuse me. And I think it's worth a try. I like the ingredients of it. Do you like the ingredients of it? All right. So that's Beam, and then I have some supplements. These two, I think, are better for aches and pains than aspirin, Advil, Aleve, Tylenol, if they're effective. This is high absorption curcumin, and this is Zyflamen. And those sort of take the place of aspirin, Advil, and so on. During the when the coronavirus was around and there was no vaccination available, I was recommending immune stimulation with glucan products. Here is Maitake Gold by who is this company? Megafood. Megafood, Megafood. And along with that, I was recommending vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, and selenium. Now, once the once you've been vaccinated or you've had the coronavirus infection, there's a point. Coronavirus infection. Do you need to be vaccinated? All the studies are showing that you have the same level of antibodies after having the infection that you get with vaccination. On the other hand, if you get one dose of the vaccination, your antibody levels are way higher than people who have had the double vaccination plus 14 days. Now, that tells me that people who have had the coronavirus infection are immune and do not need vaccination. That is not current policy according to the CDC, et cetera, et cetera. The current recommendation is that you get double vaccinated if you've had the coronavirus infection. Now, there's a lot of see, that's part of the fear and negativity that I'm talking about. That is unnecessary. I personally believe that you are immune to the coronavirus once you've had the infection. How long does that immunity last? We don't know. So let's not draw conclusions either way. What if you get a high antibody response? Is that going to be helpful 8 months or a year from now? We know that immunity lasts approximately 8 months after immunization, and probably so if you've had the infection. We don't know beyond that. We haven't studied it adequately. My feeling is that you do not need a third shot at this point or a booster shot. And one of the questions I have is, if you get a vaccination, having had the coronavirus infection, is that very high antibody response good for you? It may be good to prevent the infection, but what else is it going to do? And what are the downsides of the immunization? I am not saying don't get vaccinated. I'm saying that um, we're not sure what those high levels of antibodies may do to the human body. Everybody thinks they're wonderful. I'm not so sure. All right. What else? Talked about that. Talked about this. Yes, zinc, selenium, and vitamin D I believe, were helpful in preventing a serious coronavirus infection. 100%? Absolutely not. I have a feeling this program is over. Um, is that correct? All right, so I'm going to stop here, and I hope all is well. Good day, and God bless you all. And for the Preventive Medicine Center, I am H. Robert Silverstein, MD. That's all. Thanks.